I love that stuff. How about you, Snyder?
That was very nice.
Very
It felt like it woke up all the bones inside me to a
There
new
you
day.
go. Hey, kids, what time is it?
Time for Gezintahait Street.
It is time for Gezintahait Street. Now, I have a story for tonight. Everybody knows that Pesach is coming. And Pesach is next Saturday night. And what we do at the Pesach Seder is we ask questions. We talk about the saga of the Jewish people being released from slavery in Egypt. And we ask questions on the story. The previous Rebbe, and this is everybody can now, when they go to their Seder, this is a question and an answer that they could give. The previous Rebbe said that one year, the Rebbe Rashab revealed a deficiency in the wise son. Now, everybody knows, or they should know, that at the Seder, there are 4 sons that ask questions. And the father answers the question. And the first son is the wise son. And the Rebbe Rashab, the wise son, is the biggest son, the best one, the first one. And the Rebbe Rashab found a deficiency in the wise son. At the same time, the Rebbe Rashab praised the son who did not know how to ask, the lowest of the 4. Why? Because he had the quality of purity and sincerity. The Rebbe Rashab explained, godliness is the revealed, simple reality for the soul on high. How the neshama is on high before it comes into the body, what's real is godliness. As the soul descends, godliness no longer becomes the perceived reality. Therefore, questions can occur. But for the one who doesn't know how to ask, godliness remains his reality, even after he descends to this world. Questions occur when a person investigates that which is outside of himself. But if the topic is related to one's own being, then there is no need for searching. He has it in him. Therefore, the simple son doesn't need to understand the different meanings of the different kind of mitzvahs, the eidos and the chukim and the mishpatim, the kind of mitzvahs that you understand from everyday life, like don't kill somebody, or the kind of mitzvahs that are called witness mitzvahs, where Hashem tells you you have to keep the Yom Tov of Pesach. or the kind of mitzvahs that have no reason or just a decree from Hashem. The simple guy doesn't care about the difference between them. His outlook is, be simple and sincere with Hashem your God. Regarding this, the older Hasidim used to say, if you ask why, it's a klippa. It's a hiding on godliness if you have to ask why. So even though the wise son asks his question because of his great thirst to receive knowledge, nevertheless, it's not quite a perfect service. Furthermore, through the act of questioning, one can descend until one reaches the question of the wicked son. That's the question and the answer that you can use at your Seder. And if anybody wants me to send it to them so they have it, all they have to do is email me at Gezintahait, that's one word, Gezintahait, at gmail.com. Mendel, perhaps you could change the caption on today's show and add the email address. So if anybody wants this question and answer to use at their Seder, they'll be able to ask for it and I'll send it to them. You guys want to do a niggin, or should I do a second story? I have a second question and answer from the Seder. All right, let's try it.
Do the second one first.
Or I will. The previous Rebbe once asked his father at the Seder, why is there no blessing on reciting the Haggadah? After all, it's a mitzvah to tell the story about leaving Egypt. And that story is incorporated in the Haggadah. So if it's a mitzvah, so why is there no bracha? Like all the mitzvahs have blessings. When we do a mitzvah, we put on tefillin, we make a blessing on putting on tefillin. When we shake the lulav, we make a blessing on shaking the lulav. So why is there no blessing on reciting the Haggadah about us going out of Egypt? It's a good question, right, Herschel? His father answered that he didn't know. And when he was little, he asked the same question to his father, the Rebbe Marat. And his father answered, I don't know. And the Rebbe Marat said, I asked my father, the Tzemach Tzedek, the same question. And he gave me the same answer. He said he didn't know. Furthermore, the Tzemach Tzedek asked his grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, and got the same answer, I don't know. The Tzemach Tzedek said that his uncle, the Mittler Rebbe, brought an answer from the Rif, one of the commentators on the sages in Jewish law. He says the blessing of Kiddush on the night of Pesach includes a remembrance of the redemption from Egypt. So that blessing on drinking the wine at the beginning of the Seder, says the Rif, is the blessing on telling the story about going out of Egypt. There's another reason, according to the Rashba, since there are no limits to telling the story of going out of Egypt, you can talk all night and explain it all night, there's no limits. We don't say a bracha, because it's possible we didn't say enough to fulfill the need for a bracha. Therefore, it would be a blessing in vain. The Alter Rebbe did not agree with the Rashba. He noted that on the night of Pesach, we must tell the whole story of the redemption. Furthermore, the act of telling the story of the redemption is itself a blessing. And we don't say a blessing on a blessing. We don't make a blessing when we were going to bless Hashem for giving us our sustenance. We don't see a blessing on the blessing. According to our Rebbe, the answer of the Alter Rebbe indicates that Kiddush is not an actual part of telling the story of the redemption. Even though at the Seder, we make a special blessing on wine called Kiddush, but it is not part of telling the story of the redemption. In fact, all the talks and discourses delivered by all the Chabad Rebbes at the Seder start with Ha Lachma This is the poor bread, which comes after the Kiddush. Those of us who are poor in Das are left with questions on this story. If the Alter Rebbe finally answered that saying the Haggadah is a blessing and we don't make a blessing on the blessing, why did later Rebbe say they don't know why there's no blessing on the telling the story? Good question, right, Kimmel Elef? And if Kiddush is not part of the Haggadah, of the story of going out of Egypt, then why does the Haggadah announce the topics that we're going to say, starting with Kiddush, Kadesh Orchas? And one possible answer, maybe Kiddush is part of the Seder, but it's not part of the Haggadah of telling the story of going out of Egypt. Therefore, that story of going out of Egypt starts with, this is the poor bread. You guys want to do a niggun? Or you want to ask a question on the story?
Well, where's Schneider?
Schneider, where are you, Schneider? We see your name, but we don't see your face.
Schneider fell asleep again.
Okay, hit it, boy.
Schneider McSchneider.
Ah, there he is.
Schneider, sag mir, Sunu, you getting ready for Pesach?
Oh yeah, I got mutzi balls.
Oh, yeah, lots of matzo balls. What else? You got the kugels and things. What are you doing for Pesach? You cleaned already?
Oh yeah, I cleaned my car. I polished it with wax.
Schneider, did you clean your nose? That must be a big theme for me, cleaning my nose. Look, I just have like I don't even know what it is. I have a little cycle on my nose. It's very easy to clean. You probably have a big job over there.
Oh, yeah. I use cotton swabs.
It cleans it good, yeah?
You might need some oven cleaner too.
Okay, label
Rabbi,
it.
wait a second. Stop. Rabbi Elif, I got a question.
Yeah.
If I go to one Pesach Seder, do I have to go to the second Pesach Seder?
It depends. It depends if you're in Israel or not.
Well, if you're in Eretz Yisrael, it'll be Baltosif, so you gotta be careful.
But what about if I'm in
Schneider, don't you
Yeah.
want to go to the second Pesach Seder?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
No, he just wants to know.
I get to eat mutzi ball soup.
I get you, baby.
Baltosis didn't have a tosis.
Okay, hit it, babe.
Okay, we're singing now a niggin. Now let me tell you about this niggin. This is a niggin that the Messiah is that they used to sing by Malava Malke by the Baal Shem Tov. By the Baal Shem Tov, they sang this song by Malava Malke. Elio Anovi, 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 Elio Anovi. Agiladi, Elio, Agiladi, Elio, Agiladi. Elio, Anobi, Elio, Agishbi, Elio, Agiladi, Elio, Anobi, Elio, Agishbi, Elio, Agiladi, Elio, Anobi. Elio, Agishbi, Elio, Agiladi, Elio, Anobi. Elio, Adishbi, Elio, Adgodi, Elio, Hanovi, Elio, Adishbi, Elio, Adgodi, Elio, Hanovi, Elio, Hanahamdi, Elio, Agilodi, Elio, Hanovi, Elio, Adishbi, Elio, Adilodi, Elio, Adilodi, Elio, Adishbi, Elio, Adilodi, Elio, Hanovi, Elio, Adishbi, Elio, Hanovi, Elio, Adishbi, Elio, Adilodi.
Go! Hey! Hey! Thank you.
Rabbi Ella,
Yeah,
you know, that song is about Elijah the prophet.
yeah, I was there, you know.
Hold it. I once saw Elijah the prophet.
Oh,
You
I'll
did.
bet. I'll bet you
Yes.
look like a guy who would see him, Schneider.
Yes, I was walking next to the western wall, and there was an old man there, and he told me that he's Elijah the prophet, and I shook his hand.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a good boy.
What a slip. Nice. Thank you for sharing.
There was another old man next to him who was telling me that he's not Elijah the prophet and he's Elijah the prophet. So I didn't know which one it was
It
the
was
real
probably
one.
both Elijah the prophet.
It could be that Elijah could be in two, they couldn't be in two different bodies. We know that.
Well, they were arguing over who's the real Elijah the prophet.
Yeah,
The
he
one
was
that had his driver's license.
He said, "No, I'm Elijah. No, you're not. You're an imposter. I'm Elijah."
Well, probably one of them was.
I don't know.
By the way, while those two guys were arguing, Eliyahu snuck away and davened by the Kaisel.
Ah, maybe they're all Elijah.
Okay, when the Mishkan, everybody knows what the Mishkan was. That was the dwelling place for Hashem that Hashem told us to make for him in the desert after we got the Torah. And it was dedicated by the 12 princes, the heads of the tribe. And each prince brought his offering on one day. The first 12 days of the month of Nisan that we're in now. And even today, we have a custom of reading the offering of each tribe on its day. Today, Thursday, we read the offering of the fifth prince from the tribe of Shimon. And this is what he offered. On the fifth day, the prince of the children of Shimon, Shlumiel, the son of Surishadai, offered his offering. And his offering was one silver dish, whose weight was 130 shekels, one silver bowl that weighed 70 shekels, by the weight of the sanctuary, and they were both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a meal offering. Also, he brought a golden cup of 10 shekels filled with incense. He brought one young bullock, one ram, one lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, one goat for a sin offering, and for a sacrifice of peace offering, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, 5 yearling lambs. This was the offering of Shlumiel, the son of Surishadai. It's very interesting to note that the offering of the tribe of Shimon was exactly the same verbatim, written in the Torah, as the offerings of all the other 11 tribes. Each prince brought the exact same offering. So there's a question, why does the Torah repeat each tribe's offering verbatim? Since their gifts were identical. Why not just say that each one of the tribes brought this and this and this? One, Yehuda on the first day and Shimon on the fifth day. Why does it have to repeat the offering every day, even though it's exactly the same? Like it's known to those who study the Torah is usually very spare in its use of words. So why not just say each one of the 12 princes brought the offering? On this first day, Yehuda, why repeat the identical offering 12 times? The answer is that each tribe's intention was unique. As an example, our Rebbe reveals to us the intention of the prince of the tribe of Asher, who brought his dedication on the 11th day. And the 11th day of Nisan happens to fall out every year on the 11th of Nisan, which is the Rebbe's birthday. So the Rebbe revealed to us the particular intention of the tribe of Asher in bringing their offering, which came on the 11th day of Nisan, which is the birthday of the Rebbe. All the tribes were named for their specific praise, and their names are also connected to the final redemption. A Rebbe reveals and explains a midrash that tells us what Asher's intention was. Asher's offering, which we read on the Rebbe's birthday, reflects delight in the fact that Hashem chose the Jewish people to be his special portion. The name Asher indicates delight and is a construct of the Hebrew word which means happy. So the intention of Asher was the delight and happiness that Hashem chose us, that we will be his people. In the discourse that the Rebbe gave explaining this, like all most Hasidic discourses, the topic is introduced with a few profound questions, which are not only questions to be answered, but themselves teach great wisdom. Two of the questions that the Rebbe starts out this discourse, one, the Midrash tells us that Asher's intention was happiness, that Hashem chose the Jews for his people to be our God. But the Midrash, you could read it in another way. It could be understood to mean that Asher was happy in the fact that the Jews chose Hashem. You could read it that Asher was happy that Hashem chose the Jews, and you could read it that Asher was happy that we chose Hashem to be our special portion. And the second question, since free choice means there is no logical reason for the choice. In other words, if one is superior to the other and you choose the superior one, that's not free choice. You're choosing according to logic. So it's a funny thing when Hashem chooses the Jews, and it's known that the superiority of the Jewish soul, it's a piece of Hashem. So it's a logical choice. Of course Hashem is going to choose that which is a piece of him. So choosing the Jews is mandated by logic. It's not a free choice. And the Jews choosing Hashem at first glance is not a free choice. It's mandated by logic. Of course you're going to choose Hashem. Who else would you choose? He's the biggest and the best. So where do you see free choice? The Midrash attempts to answer the second question by saying that Hashem's real choice in choosing the Jews is he chose the Jewish body, not the Jewish soul. And that Jewish body appears identical to a non-Jewish body. But it doesn't really answer, the Rebbe says, because outer appearances do not obfuscate for Hashem. He sees the inner reality. The Rebbe answers the questions through explaining a parable, a story which is a parable from the Midrash. A king came to a city accompanied by three groups of dignitaries: chiefs, generals, and ministers. Each citizen of the country chose one of those royal ministers to serve in order to receive power and glory and treasures. But one clever person chose the king himself. He didn't choose one of the ministers to be in his camp. He said, I choose the king. He said, because the king is permanent, while the ministers are only temporary. So far, the Midrash. Our Rebbe says, why does it take a smart guy to choose the king? Even a child knows that the king is greater than all of the ministers. What's more, what does the smart guy mean when he says only the king is permanent? Our Rebbe explains that having a relationship with the king does not come for free. It takes great effort, concentration, concentrated service, self-mollification, and must be carried out with all one's abilities in order to internalize his connection to the king. The answer to the Rebbe's second question about the significance of the smart one, that the king is permanent, will be understood through explaining the object of this metaphor, of this parable story. The other nations choose to receive their flow of wealth and good fortune from the heavenly ministers. They understand that the king is greater than the ministers. After all, even their gods call him the God of gods. Those people serve the ministers because they want the treasures they can receive now. But the smart guy, the Jew, knows that by serving the king, his final gain will be everlasting, while the others will be left with disappointment, decay, and death. But since the choice here must be free of constraints of logic, free choice, it means picking between equals. In this case, both are serving for their own reasons. The nations of the world are serving those heavenly ministers to be able to get the flow they can get. And the Jews are serving the king because they know that finally they're going to get more. So it looks like essentially there's no difference between the two. Between the choice of the clever person, he will gain more in the end. And those made by the rest of the people, their gain is immediate. So they are both apparently serving for ulterior motives. So how can this be considered a free choice? I'm choosing because I'm going to get some. He's choosing because he's going to get some. So it's not a free choice. However, the smart guy really chooses the king, not for any reward. Even though he knows he will receive a greater portion eventually, his service and delight comes from linking to the inner will, not for a side desire to get to the king, to get stuff from him, but the actual desired goal of the king. He wants to have the king reach his goal. And whether he receives a small amount while his relationship to the king is still undeveloped, or he will receive a bigger amount when his relationship is bigger. He'll get a lot of abundance at that time when his bond to the king will be completely revealed. But he doesn't care. His goal is to complete the inner desire of the king. You guys want to play a nigga? I see you're all ready to go. You got something, Gimel? There you go.
In Yeshuritz chlosi, shtos nami bodya, mitbayedem dachar chavketam mevat kavodya. Yeshuritz chlosi, shtos nami bodya, mitbayedem dachar chavketam mevat kavodya. Man, I see the bongos. Hey, ay,
Oh,
Thank you, boys. It's always a pleasure.
wow, that I felt like I was in a Russian tavern.
You
Now,
kind
what?
of for a moment there.
Yeah, Russian pub in Russia, a tavern.
A cavern in Russia. I hope you had some mosca in there with you.
Oh yeah, that's what they do over there.
That's what they do over there.
You have a
Now,
fight.
That song reminded me of a Russian tavern.
All right, that sounds good.
Hiya, 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 hiya.
To further clarify how the Jew chooses Hashem for himself and not for ulterior motives, the Rebbe tells a story from the Siddur, which is also about a king. The king made a banquet and invited his favorite servants, ministers, and important courtiers. The servants represent the lesser angels. The ministers represent the higher angels, while the important members of the court represent the divine emanations, the spheros of the world of the world of unity with God. During the meal, the dogs received a lot of discarded bones and meat waste. The waiters and cooks also received large portions of the leftovers. But it was obviously not the king's intention to lay out so much money to feed the dogs and the kitchen staff. Instead, the king's intention was to feed the invited guests and important members of the court. The dogs represent the creatures of this physical world who are unaware of the king, Hashem, or of his greatness. They just always want more and more for themselves. The wait staff represent those who obey the king out of fear of punishment. The favored servants, the ministers, and important members of the court, who are the invited guests, serve through whatever level of realization of the king's greatness they have achieved. These levels parallel the three kinds of ministers that entered the town with the king in our midrash. A Jew, the Rebbe says, forgoes all these levels, even the highest revelations of godliness, because he's a clever person. He has chosen the king himself, not revelation. And the metaphor for this is when the person goes into the king's palace, he has to go through a bunch of rooms, fantastic rooms, where there's a revelation of the kingly riches and beauty. And for example, first he goes into a room of music where there's all kinds of amazing orchestras playing with light shows. And it's not just regular orchestras like we know about, it's orchestras that have a beautiful sound of godliness. But it's not yet the king. So he continues to the next level, which may be a fabulous garden with waterfalls, rippling springs, and beautiful quiet corners. But it's not yet the king. So he goes to the next level. And many people going through these levels get caught and hung up in these revelations. But not the Jew. The Jew wants Hashem himself. He's not happy with revelation. He wants Hashem. And this is reflected in the Alter Rebbe's famous prayer. I don't want your paradise, the Alter Rebbe said to Hashem. I don't want your reward in the world to come. I only want you. And that's the Jew, the one, the smart guy who chooses the king. Why does he only want Hashem? Because the essence of his soul is a piece of God. And why does he have to be a smart guy then? He could choose without being smart. His essence is a piece of God, so he chooses his essence. Why does he have to be smart? Since the clever person's connection is to Hashem's inner essence. To make the connection, since the soul is a piece of Hashem, so why does he have to be smart, like we said? To reveal the bond. Since that smart guy's connection to Hashem is to Hashem's inner desire, he too must use his internal power to make the connection. This requires involving his intellect, his wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, and his emotions, and ultimately his thoughts, speech, and action, so that they are invested in the physical body. And why? Because Hashem chose the Jew body and soul. And therefore, the Jew chooses Hashem. Hashem chose the Jewish people to be his special people. That is his inner desire. And he chose it not as an aid to something else which he desired. No, that's his inner desire, that the Jews should be his people. And that's the source of the strength and power of the Jews to choose Hashem. The fact that Hashem chose them is their strength in being able to choose Hashem. Because Hashem's inner desires for them, and the fact that Hashem chooses the Jewish body allows them to serve him in the physical world with all the physical stuff, and even in physicality, that service of the Jew is his inner desires, Hashem's inner desire. Hashem's inner desire is the Jews serve Hashem in this physical world. And through this, we can understand how the offering of the tribe of Asher, whose intention was happiness because Hashem chose us, even though the only delight is that the Jews chose Hashem. The only delight of the Jews is that we chose him. So the intention of Asher being happy that Hashem chose us, at first glance is not understood, but it's because the superiority of the Jew is not that they receive from on high, but the service they accomplish down here, which is the main pleasure and nachas of Hashem. But to give them the strength to accomplish bringing pleasure to Hashem through their service, it must be revealed to them that they were chosen by Hashem to give him pleasure. And this revelation is accomplished through the intention of the offering of the tribe of Asher. Hashem chose us, and that gives us the strength to choose him, which is what he really wants. You guys want to do a nigger now? You have one loaded?
I got one loaded.
Yeah, Labe has one. Labe has one not just loaded, but locked, loaded, and ready to fire, baby.
Locked and loaded. Hey! In case anybody doesn't know, those lyrics are saying that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, and just like he took us out of Egypt, he's going to take us out of this. As a matter of fact, it reminds me of a story. Well, maybe we'll tell it another time. Maybe we'll tell it after. We'll see. And we could say that with the Alter Rebbe's declaration, I don't want your paradise. I don't want your world to come. I only want you. Each person in our generation is strengthened even more in being enabled to make the absolute choice of the king himself. We choose the king. We forgo all revelations, physical and spiritual, so that even our desire for physicality is in order to activate the choice in using worldly things to serve Hashem. And the natural outcome is that we're given much in the way of physicality. What a blessing. In order to turn that physicality into spirituality, to use it for good things. And all of this we do in a happy way with a good heart in preparation for Pesach, for Passover, which is the time of our freedom, until the real freedom of the coming of Mashiach. Chassidus is the feast of Leviathan. When Mashiach comes, Hashem is going to make a big feast for us with a big fish called the Leviathan. And that is this study of this explanations of godliness that we're learning called Chassidus. But listen, everybody, don't be satisfied with the description of the meal on the menu that I just gave you. Learn the mimer itself. You can find it in English online at a site called simplychassidus.org. Chew it. That's chachma, wisdom. Taste it. That's bina, understanding. Swallow it. That's das, knowledge. Be nourished by it. That's the midos, the feelings. And be enlivened by it through thought, speech, and action. Es Gezintahait. Ge Gezintahait and Es Gezintahait. Should we have a niggun? Are we okay with a niggun again? Or it's too fast?
We're doing your I'm trying to see.
They got one. These boys, you can't catch these boys with their pants down. They're ready to go.
Let's let him stay away to heaven.
That is astounding. Very, very nice.
Dankeschön.
Okay, we're going to go out with the Gezintahait song, but first, we want to share with you the Gezintahait Street Lullaby.
Yeah.
If we can find it now. Hang on. Yeah, here it is.
On the street.
Okay, ready? Here it is. Follow the bouncing ball.
Okay, we got it.
Hush, little baby, no reason to cry. You're the first generation of Mashiach, I know. So rock back and forth and go with the flow. Maybe your son's on the table, just open your eyes. I just want to tell you, you're a terrific surprise. Mama loves you, little baby, you're the light of my eyes. But please have mercy and hush your cries. Where's the last line? Where's the last line?
That's it.
Oh.
That's the whole point of the lullaby. Is hush your cry.
Hush your cries.
That's pretty good. You know, I just want to tell everybody that was extemporaneous. I came up with that
That's a
song
great
there,
How did you
extemporaneous.
come across that
Absolutely
one?
beautiful. Okay, we're going to go out now with the Gezintahait.
Yeah.
Ready? Gezintahait, remember, kids, Gezintahait.
Gezintahait.
That's correct.